Nice launch check and countdown net. Pad is clear.
10, 9, 8.
Launch auto sequence
7,
has started.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go for launch.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Stage separation confirmed. Dragon, separation confirmed. Stage 1 is transonic. Landing legs have deployed. And Falcon 9 has landed.
Hello, and welcome to our webcast coverage of the O3b mPOWER mission for our customer SES. On your screen is a live view of Falcon 9 awaiting its 6:12 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. My name is Yomizo, and I'm a propulsion engineer here at SpaceX, joining you today from SpaceX headquarters here in Hawthorne, California. Today's launch marks SpaceX's 226th overall mission, the second launch this week, with the potential of a third of our Falcon Heavy vehicle awaiting liftoff at our neighboring pad in just over an hour from now, as long as weather cooperates. Now, some of our longtime viewers might know that SES was one of SpaceX's earliest launch customers and has been a key partner in a number of firsts with us. SES was the first commercial satellite operator to launch on Falcon 9 from the Cape back in December of 2013, and the first customer to fly on a flight-proven booster on March of 2017. Today's launch will mark the second of 5 total O3b mPOWER launches. We launched the first 2 O3b mPOWER spacecraft in December of last year, and today we will be launching 2 additional O3b mPOWER spacecraft into space. Now, SES's O3b mPOWER system will operate from medium Earth orbit, or MEO, and comprises an initial constellation of 11 high-throughput and low-latency satellites, as well as an extensive ground infrastructure. Collaboratively designed with Boeing, the O3b mPOWER is SES's second-generation MEO system. And with that, here's a video sharing a bit more about our mission today.
Another launch, another milestone. 3, 2, 1. Today marks an important step on the way to a new era of satellite service. SES's third and fourth O3b mPOWER satellites are ready to be launched into space.
And liftoff of SES.
They will join the first pair of satellites 8,000 kilometers from the Earth's surface in the medium Earth orbit. From government operations critical to national security, to underserved communities across island nations, to cruise passengers in the middle of the ocean, O3b mPOWER ensures an extraordinary satellite-enabled network experience where high-speed connectivity is secure and reliable at all times.
O3b mPOWER is scaled ridiculously from our original O3b constellation, and that means in fixed data, in aero, in cruise, and in government, we're able to take our base capability but deliver it to so many more users simultaneously and with 10 times the capability.
By offering industry-best throughput, predictable performance, high availability, and unprecedented flexibility, O3b mPOWER makes it possible for SES's customers to carry out critical applications, to delight end users, and to grow new revenue streams. Together with more than 30 technology partners, SES has been rolling out the O3b mPOWER ground system worldwide. The next generation ground equipment is more portable, easier to install, and more efficient, enabling faster access to secure and reliable O3b mPOWER services. A new era of high performance is here. Are you ready?
On your screen is a live view of our Falcon 9 vehicle. The 2-stage Falcon 9 stands 229 feet tall, or slightly taller than the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. When it's fully fueled, it'll hold just over 1 million pounds of propellant that the vehicle will burn through in less than 3 minutes after liftoff. We began loading those propellants on both stages at about T-minus 35 minutes. Now, starting from the very top of the rocket, our payload today is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which is that structure at the very top of the rocket. It's made out of a carbon composite material. The fairing protects satellites on their way to orbit, and the fairing halves will be jettisoned approximately 3 minutes into flight. Now, for today's mission, we have 2 spacecraft on the second stage and inside the fairing. Each payload will deploy at separate times, about 6 minutes apart from each other. And the fairing halves supporting today's mission are flight proven, with one half flying for its 3rd time and the other half flying for its 4th time. Now, just below the payload fairing, we have the second stage that will take the O3b mPOWER payload to space. The second stage will ignite its single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine about 2.5 minutes into flight, and then relight for a 2nd and 3rd time before we deploy the 2 satellites. Below the second stage, we have the inner stage, which is a part of the first stage. And as you can see on your screen, the carbon fiber inner stage has a distinct black color because it is unpainted TPS, or thermal protection system, and it protects the composite material of the inner stage. Now, at the bottom of the first stage, there are 9 Merlin engines that will get the Falcon 9 off the ground and up into the thinner parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Shortly after liftoff, the first and second stages will separate from one another. Then the second stage will continue to orbit, while the first stage will start making its way back down to Earth. The first stage is designed to be reflown with minimal refurbishment between flights. Today's booster is actually flying for the 2nd time, having previously supported the Crew 6 mission back in March, a little less than 2 months ago. Now, if we're successful in recovering the booster on screen, it will mark the 188th successful recovery of an orbital-class rocket. And lastly, that large truss structure.
For strongback retract.
That large truss structure is the strongback, or the TE, transporter erector. As you heard on that call out, we are pressing for the strongback retraction. But the TE is what routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and satellites until Falcon 9 goes on internal power and clears the pad.
Strongback retract has started.
Yeah, you heard that call out that the sequence for starting strongback retraction has begun. You'll physically see the strongback retract in just a few moments. Now, while we're waiting for the TE to retract, you'll see that the clamp arms just below the fairing are opening there. You can see that they have opened up. Now, the first stage is connected to a launch mount at the base of the TE, but the structure is hinged, so it will retract away from the vehicle in preparation for launch. And as you heard, the strongback is also what the launch team refers to as the transporter erector. Now, at this point in the countdown, both the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Both the first and second stages should finish loading propellant about a minute apart from each other, with the first stage finishing up at T-minus 3 minutes here in just about 15 seconds, and the second stage at T-minus 2 minutes. Now, those white clouds you see around the vehicle is the chilled gas.
Stage 1 lock load complete.
There's that call out that stage 1 liquid oxygen loading is complete. Stage 2 should follow shortly in just about a minute. Now, again, that venting white cloud that you see is from the TE LOX line and is totally expected. Now, at T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup, and this means the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And just inside of T-minus 2 seconds, we light the Merlin 1D engines for liftoff. Now, SES's O3b mPOWER payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is currently a watch item, but we're pushing towards RT0 at 6:12 p.m. Eastern Time in hopes of clearer skies, and the range is ready for support.
Stage 2, locks load complete.
Stage 2 LOX loading should be completing here shortly. Now again, at T-1 minute, Falcon 9 will be in startup, where the first and second stages will begin pressurizing for launch, and Falcon's internal flight computers will take over the launch
Ground gas
countdown.
close up. Falcon 9 is in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup. The internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown.
LD, go for launch.
We have launch directors go for launch. All systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 with the O3b mPOWER payload.
T-minus 30 seconds. -15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engine full power, and go! Falcon 9 and SES O3b mPOWER.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Vehicle's pitching down range.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off of Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, carrying the O3b mPOWER payload. During ascent, we tilt the engines, technically called gimbling, and this turns the rocket horizontally in what we call a gravity turn.
Supersonic.
You heard that call out that the vehicle is now supersonic, and we will be throttling the engines down in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, in just a couple seconds.
Max Q.
Now we pass through max Q, and the rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth. You heard the call out that MVAC engine chill has begun. Now this is in preparation for 3 events coming up in quick succession, which is main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine startup 1. So these 3 events will all be happening in about 30 seconds here, starting with main engine cutoff of those first stage engines that you can see on your screen right now.
Stage 1 throttle down. And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
And there you heard and saw those 3 events happening back to back: main engine cutoff, stage separation, and that second engine startup 1 of our second stage. You can see those grid fins on the first stage deploying as the first stage begins to make its way back down to Earth. Now, the next event in just a few seconds here will be fairing separation, where the two halves of the fairings will separate to reveal our O3b mPOWER satellites.
Fairing separation confirmed.
There's that confirmation of fairing separation, and we will be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves again today once they fall back down to Earth using our recovery vessel, Bob. It's T plus 3 minutes and 50 seconds here into today's mission, and we are in the first of 2 planned MVAC burns for satellite deployment.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
In about 2.5 minutes here at T plus 6 minutes and 30 seconds, you should see on your screen the first stage's entry burn. Now for this entry burn, we relight 3 of the M1D engines, starting with the center E9 engine, followed shortly by the E1 and E5 engines, which are all in a row. And this entry burn will slow the vehicle as it passes down into the Earth's atmosphere. Beautiful views from the first and second stages on your screen. Now the first stage is making its way back down, preparing for its entry burn. We need to perform this entry burn to help reduce re-entry forces on the first stage, which will help us recover and reuse the booster. Now again, during the re-entry burn, the first stage on the left will decelerate by firing its Merlin engines. It'll fire 3 out of the 9 engines, and this will actually cause the vehicle to fly down through the plume, which will deposit some of that soot back onto Falcon 9. Beautiful views from the first and second stage. Again, that second stage is in the first of 3 planned burns, carrying our 2 O3b mPOWER satellites. And the first stage is coming down, awaiting the start of its entry burn at T plus 6 minutes and 30 seconds. This will be about a 20-second entry burn. You can see the speed.
On a nominal trajectory.
You can see the speed of both the first and second stages on the bottom left and right hand side of your screens, respectively. First stage is about to start its entry burn.
Stage 1 FTS has safed.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
There's the start of the first stage entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
That was a good entry burn from the first stage. Again, reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, which enables more investments in things like critical scientific research. Now, the Falcon 9 first stage that's supporting today's mission just performed its entry burn for the second time after previously having supported the Crew 6 launch just last month. Now, the Merlins on the first stage are optimized for sea level, whereas that MVAC engine you see on the second stage there is optimized for vacuum, which just means that it has a much bigger nozzle compared to the M1D engines on the first stage. Now, coming up in about 20 seconds, we'll have the shutdown of our MVAC engine on the second stage, followed quickly by the landing burn on our first stage.
Stage 1 transonic.
Stage 2 FTS is safed.
There was confirmation of second engine cutoff
Nominal parking orbit insertion.
and a nominal orbital insertion.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There is the start of our stage 1 landing burn, and you can see that drone ship coming in quick.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing deploy.
What an awesome view of that first stage recovery. Everyone's very excited here in Hawthorne. And there you have it. That landing marks SpaceX's 188th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings of Falcon 9 and Heavy. But the mission isn't over just yet. The second stage is now embarking on its first coast phase. Now, after this coast phase, we will light that MPAC engine for a second time around the T plus 27 minute mark. So we'll see you back here in about 17 minutes.